a great introduction to what you've been doing and how you've come here. Of course, you talk about ancient Indian wisdom, and just in one of the previous sessions, we were hearing about how in creating startups, in creating new businesses, there is a lack of an Indian system of doing it. And obviously, like you said, that doesn't mean that the Western system isn't right, but what is it that businesses, not just startups, can learn from ancient Indian practices, whether it's commercial practices, whether it is just structural or discipline, right? What can they learn? What are the key things that they can keep in mind or utilize to build sustainable long-term businesses like Mr. Gopalakrishnan was just saying?
Thank you so much, Prasar. I think two takeaways from ancient Indian knowledge. I would say first thing is leadership. Because when you are an entrepreneur, when you are a startup, we forget that you're also a leader. And from culture to culture, the leadership changes. Like I think we keep discussing, and I was listening to the Gopal sir also, the question that was asked, how about so many people being fired? In India, we think 100 times before firing. But I don't think it's a major problem in US. ठीक है ना यार निकाल दिया. So I think it's very cultural. I still remember before Trump became the president, there was a show that he hosted, and there it was hiring and firing was very normal. You are fired. That was the punchline. Remember? And if you are actually an American born there, it was a normal thing. So I think here in India, leadership is more about a very interesting concept that I read about in our culture. It's called Shreshti. Shreshti is a very interesting word where it's equivalent to a chairman of a company. So, there'll be oligarchies, there'll be groups who will be doing business together. For example, Shilpakars. So in Rajasthan, there are so many people who are sculptors. But it's a very organized sector, not from the government perspective, but within the community. They'll get married within the community. They'll have this knowledge passing on. In fact, they have within themselves, every community, something called a Jati Puran, which is actually the framework, like a constitution within that particular community. Now here, the role of the Shreshti in India is that somebody who comes in is never going to go out. At least that's the way. So, if somebody joins my company as a leader, I never want him to go away unless, it's something extreme. So, the first thing that we learn is leadership styles of our country, and there's so much wisdom. I think I'm not only Chanakya, who was a leadership guru, you have Rama and Mahabharata Upanishads. The second important thing, which I'm sure everybody should look in, is wealth creation. And I'm telling this, Chanakya wrote the Artha Shastra. And many times, as I always say, we go back and glorify we are the richest part of the world, richest country in the world, Sone ki chidiya and all that. But do you know the formula? And the interesting part is that there is a formula. I found out that why we were the richest part of the world. Of course, we don't only require the Western researchers and statistics to tell you we're the richest part, and 35% of GDP was from India. Thanks to it. But I'm not happy with the statistics. Tell me the formula. It's like, if I got a cough and cold, Dadima says, itna kha lena. That works for me. I'm not interested in the academic pursuit. So let me tell you, the wealth creation is a very interesting model which we have forgotten. So I think leadership and wealth creation is two things the businessman should learn from ancient Indian culture.
No, so I think makes a lot of sense. But, interestingly, you said that you're the, let's say, most frequent consumer of your own authorship. So, can you, for example, talk us through, let's say, a couple of examples or a few anecdotes that, you've probably, internalized it and therefore you've done it. But then when you've gone back and referred to your own writing, you realized, what you were saying earlier, that it works. So, can you give us some examples of that?
Yeah, sure. In fact, I was just having a small discussion with Abhishek. Abhishek, yeah. So, he works for Kotak Mahindra Bank, and he told me something interesting. Like, 21 books, there is a very unique book. It's called The Spoke Chanakya. It's a very interesting book. It is also a bestseller, but not among the popular books, like Corporate Chanakya, children's book is Chatur Chanakya. You'll be surprised, if you take The Spoke Chanakya, you open any page. I have tried to summarize it in one line and explain it. I'll just give you a simple example. A silent leader doesn't mean a stupid leader. Now that's one line wisdom. Now, look at this, another statement, as we are very popular, enemy is a friend. It's known for Chanakya Niti, Samadhana Dandaveda. So why am I telling you this? When I get confused, I require a direction. Chanakya says two formulas for leaders because it's always lonely at the top. Where do we get our energies? So you say ki Santa and Shastra. So you go to your guru, your mentor, whom you can have a conversation. But the other one is that you can even look at a book, just open any page, and I have found my answers in Arthashastra. One simple example, since you asked me, I remember in my first stage of business, I was alone. Okay, one man person, one man show, bootstrapping, everything. And then suddenly I started realizing after 3-4 years, I'm not able to take it to the next level. Then I thought, let me take a message from Arthashastra. I remember opening the book and I found something very powerful. And it said, for a person to grow, the biggest asset is called Mitra. You require a friend. And Chanakya says, you never fight a battle alone, you always take friends along. And that's why when I actually went to one of my friends and said, why don't you join my company? As a partner, of course. And that took the company to a global level. So coming back, it is not about what is written, but in that particular point of time, does it make relevance to me? So I think this is just one of the examples. There are so many examples. Whenever you pick up, and Gandhiji also used to say, whenever I have a problem, I open the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita doesn't change. Chanakya or any ancient wisdom doesn't change. But you are ready for that knowledge at that particular point of time.
That's very interesting. So also, I mean, you mentioned you work with the university here in Mumbai, and I remember reading that you're leading a program that's around leadership sciences, right? So can you tell us a little more about what's the purpose behind it, what's the outcomes you're looking at, how does it make how is it different for learners, and most importantly, how do you tie it back to your learnings? All of this seems to be sourced from the knowledge of Chanakya, or the knowledge that Chanakya created. So how does it all tie in?
So I just mentioned, when my journey of Chanakya started, I wanted to go into an in-depth study. I did my MA in Sanskrit, I did my PhD, and I'm a gold medalist. Okay, so it's like all those academic feathers in the cap came in. And I still remember one day the Vice Chancellor called me and he told, you are already doing very well and your PhD output is very relevant. Why don't we start a center? I think if you're a businessman, if you find somebody who's doing good, you want to start maybe a profit center for him or her, right? So it's like a new center. I said, I don't have any idea, but don't worry, I will give you all administrative powers also. Imagine starting an institution and the name of the institution is CIILS, Chanakya International Institute of Leadership Studies at the University of Mumbai, right here in the Kalina campus next to BKC. Let me tell you, this was a bureaucratic role that I got into. I have all the powers of an administration as a director, but I went back to him and saying that, I need to have some hand holding. He said, don't worry, the whole system will support you. Now coming back, that's the academic and administrative part of it. What do we do? There is a lot of wisdom. So we actually started a center or a leadership institution, and we started offering a program called as MALS. MA is the degree we offer, Masters in Arts. LS is Leadership Science. Leadership as a science. I'm sure all of us attend some seminars, lectures, and read books on leadership. But imagine we actually derived a 2 years full-time program on leadership. And when we actually announced it, we had the support of the whole administration, government, even politicians for that matter. What happened is that we started attracting a very diverse kind of students. We had CEOs and chairmen of company joining us, and we were surprised. Why are you joining? Imagine somebody at 55 is joining your course, along with somebody who's 25 years old. And you'll be surprised, 9 out of 10 of my students are already MBAs. And they are from reputed institutions. I used to ask them in my interview, why are you joining? And then I got this unique answer saying that, we already are good managers. We have the ability to go up to leadership level, but we were never trained to be a leader. And I've been very fortunate that now we are offering PhD programs. So, and you'll be surprised, we have the best of the best brains from across the globe. Statistically speaking, 40% of our students are from outside India. So that shows that there's so much demand from people abroad. And countries like, Dubai, of course, we have some students. US students are coming. And of course, we have, even Vietnam. We have students coming from South Africa. So when we talk about ancient wisdom in global way, academically, we already achieved it. Thank you.
Wow, very nice. So, you said you have like 21 books already written. What's the path for the future? Because obviously you're quite young now, right? So what's the path for the future? Do we see more books from you? Are you going to focus more on the academic and corporate side? What's the future path?
I think that's a very interesting question. Because I remember when we were young, when I say young, I'm 48 already. So 20 years ago, there was some seminar and goal setting exercise. I remember I had written this goal saying that I will write a book. Then I said, okay, कंजूसी क्यों करते हो? Bracket में लिखो bestseller book. Then I said, I want to study further. I said, कि छोटा क्यों सोचते हो? PhD करो. So I had this, some 10 goals and I forgot. Of course, I worked towards it and all that. I think just last month I was cleaning up my cupboard and I realized one thing, I overachieved all the goals. So not only PhD, but a gold medalist in that. Of course, not only a book, not only a bestseller, but 21 bestsellers. Now coming back, I'll tell you something very frankly. Having all these goals is the initial phase of life. But once you're an achiever, you go with the flow. That doesn't mean you don't have a plan. So I'll tell you one thing, academically imagine becoming a director. There are people who don't become a director even at the point of retirement. So I got the directorship at the day one itself. So academically, not only as a student, but as a professor, as an administrator. In fact, I've been getting a lot of programs to be done for the Indian Army, Navy, Air Force. In fact, today spiritual gurus are calling us to train their sishyas. So coming back to the question, what is the way future? I think there are two things. I enjoy reading myself, writing books. You'll be surprised, 21 are published books. 3 of them are under editing. And now I'm actually writing a new book, I think relevant to our topic also, Chanakya for startups. So I think writing is a byproduct, it will happen. But what is really interesting for me is that, a lot of people who want to understand Chanakya the practical way. And to summarize it, I think the real joy that I get is speaking to somebody one-to-one. It's like a doctor. When you go to the doctor, you want that personal touch, that personal time, that one-to-one conversations. And I've been very fortunate, be it a young startup or chairman of a company. They have different problems and I feel that, I can be a mentor in some way or the other. So I think apart from writing books, traveling, doing author sessions, writing books, guiding PhD students. There are 7 PhD students under me from different backgrounds, some of them from corporates. I have somebody who actually is working for the PMO's office, who is a student of mine. So imagine, it's like a very, very high profile kind of a life I'm living. When I say profile, not by celebrity status, but imagine you have the best of the brains from different fields, trying to understand and apply Chanakya. I think I'm blessed. मैं एक ही बात कहूँगा कि I've been very fortunate. If I can give it back, I'll be happy.
I think blessings and fortune is more important than anything. So I think, great stories, fascinating session. Before we wrap up, any questions from the audience? Yes, we have one there and one there. So we'll quickly take, actually 3. So maybe we'll go to the gentleman at the back there first.
So you were just about to give a recipe for wealth creation, Chanakya style. Can you elaborate?
See, I think across the globe, the so-called businessmen, wealth creators understand one formula. It's always called socio-economics. Society first and economics later. Economics cannot be a standalone subject. So what Chanakya does, he understands the society and what is the formula that works with the society. Let me give an example. You know which is India's currently #1 industry? IT. Okay, that's a very Western way of looking at it. Of course it's IT. It's called the wedding industry. Clear? And that's so unique about India. I was in Jaipur, and as you know, many of you who have been there or at least understand the Marwadi culture. I have a student from Jaipur. He was telling me something interesting. 200-300 crore शादी में खर्चा करना is very normal for a middle class family there. 200-300 crore. And you add up, there are already reports coming, right? MICE. The event managers have this formula called MICE, M-I-C-E, meetings, incentives, conferences and events. Exhibitions. So weddings is the major one. And that's very socially relevant for our country or our culture. Coming back, I remember there's this group of Americans who went to America maybe 20-30 years ago. And if they used to do a puja, okay, the hotel guys used to comment that यहाँ पे fire extinguisher है, आपको नहीं करना है. And the same hotels are coming and saying that if you catch an Indian, you have a booking of all 200 rooms for the next 7 days. So coming back, the point that Chanakya was making, the artha ke pehle, samaj shastra padho. And let me tell you, every family is very unique. It is not only agriculture that is our economic model. We have a temple culture, we have temple economics, and India is very much family economics. We never earn for ourselves, we earn for a whole family. And of course, there is a very unique one which Gandhiji understood. It's called village economics. So Charkha wasn't just about textile. It's about getting the whole community together. So I think what Chanakya would say about economics is that understand your culture, understand your people in that culture, and money will come to you.
All right, thank you. So I think unfortunately we are short on time, so maybe we can take those two questions offline because Dr. Pillai is still here. But thank you so much for
Thank you
this.
so much.